When their footsteps no longer sounded in the hall, Gretel sat up and opened the window curtain. The sun was beginning to come up, and she opened the window and let the cool morning breeze blow in. She shook her head to get the horrible image of the night out of her mind, and the old weight had returned. It knew, she said, it knew our plans. Hansel sat up. He felt the weight on his chest, too, heavier than ever, as if every person in the family were standing on him, and every person in the kingdom of Grimm was standing on them. Come off it, he said irritably. It saw us or hurt us or something. No one knew the plan until we were deep in the forest, and none of the soldiers ran off. Mother and Father knew it. Oh, please, Hansel said. Mother and Father told the dragon. Gretel admitted that did sound ridiculous. She sat looking out the window. The kingdom spread out before her under the rising sun. Maybe the dragon had seen the golden apples and figured it out. It had been an obvious trap, a stupid trap, a childish trap. But then, why did Father have a bandage around his head? Gretel asked suddenly. You heard? He cut himself. Gretel nodded. After a moment he said, why was he limping? Because, Hansel said, and then he stopped. Was he shaving his toes? Wait, I don't understand, said Hansel. And Gretel stood up. Father, she said. What about him? Hansel asked, staring. Father is the dragon. What? When did the dragon first appear? Gretel said. When Father was away looking for us. When did it kill the kingdom's army? When Father wasn't leading the army. Who knew of our plan? Mother and Father. But the wine. You said the dragon didn't know what was in those barrels. And Gretel paused. But then she replied, when did we decide to bring the wine? After we told them, said Hansel. After we told them, said Gretel. And now he has a bandage on his head, and he is limping. No, said Hansel. It is him. He's our father, said Hansel. It doesn't matter, Gretel said. She went to the clothes she had worn from the battle, laying in a bloody pile on the floor, and drew from it her belt a small dagger. She walked out the door to the hall and opened it. She turned to Hansel. I'm going to go kill the dragon now. Gretel walked slowly down the stairs through the hall to their parents' room. She opened the door. The king stood in his nightclothes beside the bed. His foot was thickly bandaged, and blood was seeping through the wrappings. Where's Mother? Gretel asked. The king turned surprised. I thought you'd be sleeping. She said she's in the chapel. Why? And then Gretel, what do you have that dagger for? What's wrong? You are the dragon, she said. What? You are the dragon, she shouted. She took a step towards him, and he took a step back. He stepped towards him again. Then she charged. Gretel, he cried, as she thrust the dagger into his chest. He stepped to the side and grabbed her arms. Gretel, stop it. What are you doing? Just then, Hansel arrived at the door. He watched his father holding his sister's slender wrist with his strong hands. She was shouting at him, You're the dragon, and trying to hit him with the point of her dagger. He shook her violently, and the dagger came loose from her hands. It clattered to the floor. She kicked it, and it slid under the bed. He held her wrist tightly. Gretel, what are you doing? Gretel's face was red and twisted with fury. You did this to us, she cried. You cut off our heads. You're the dragon. You killed those people. It is your fault. Yours. And she lifted her little foot and brought it down on his bandaged toes as hard as she could. He threw back his head and screamed in pain. She stomped on the bandage again and again, and the bandage began to slide off, and she stopped. Gretel, Hansel shouted, stop, you're hurting him. But Gretel fell to the ground. He's missing 2 toes, she said. He's missing 2 toes. Her father looked up at her. His eyes were no longer his eyes. They were golden, with neither whites nor pupils. Hansel, Gretel cried. Hansel had seen. He was looking for a weapon. Hanging on the wall, there was a sword. He took it down and moved towards his father, the dragon. His father stared at him through golden eyes. I'm sorry, Father, Hansel whispered. It's not your fault, Gretel said. And then Hansel swung the sword through the air towards their father's neck, and at that moment both Hansel and Gretel remembered just what it looked like, what it felt like when they had their heads been cut off. And then Hansel's swung sword took their father's head at the neck and sent it rolling across the floor into the corner of the room. The king's headless body fell on top of Gretel, and just like that, everything was still. Gretel cradled her father's body. Hansel's bloody sword tip touched the stone floor. The light in the room was yellow like the morning. The birds outside did not sing. Then, out from where their father's head had once been attached to his body, 2 claws emerged on the bloody stump. They were quickly followed by spindly black legs and then golden eyes and head of a miniature worm-like dragon. Its long, thin, black, blood-covered body slipped out of the king's neck and scrambled towards its shoulders. Before she could even move over Gretel's lap and onto the floor, it skittered frantically towards the sewage grate, its claws scratching and scraping against the bedroom's flagstones. Gretel shrieked, and Hansel flung himself at it, striking at its skeletal body with his sword. One furious blow broke its back, the next decapitated it completely. But Hansel didn't stop. He raised his sword and brought it down again and again, until the evil little creature was nothing more than a mess of black, pulpy pieces on the floor. Hansel breathed hard, eyes aflame, took the ash shovel from the fireplace. He collected the tiny beast's mangled remains and threw them into the fire. The flames roared in greeting. As they did, a long, high, terrible scream pierced the air, just like the scream Hansel and Gretel had heard in the wood. A moment later, all was silent again, and golden smoke drifted lazily from the blazing fire into the chimney and then spread out to the morning air. The dragon was dead. Hansel looked at Gretel. She sat bent over her father's lifeless body. She was crying. Hansel came to her side and hugged her, and Hansel and Gretel, brother and sister, sat on the floor of their parents' room and thought of all they had seen and all they had done, and all they had seen, and they wept. "Quick," Gretel said, whispering through her tears, "bring me his head." Gretel looked at the corner where it had come to rest. He went to it and gingerly, trying not to look at it, he picked it up and brought it to his sister. From her pocket, Gretel had taken out the warlock's twine. It was nearly nothing, just frayed strands, no thicker than hair. "Hold his head on," she said. So Hansel put the father's head on the neck. Then Gretel wrapped the twine around it and fumblingly tied it. As she untied it, the twine snapped, and she let it fall to the ground. They watched the skin on their father's neck creep back together, healing before their eyes. But he did not move. Gretel began to cry harder, and Hansel cried too. "We forgive you," Gretel said. "We do," Hansel agreed. Their tears fell on him, and he moved. Gretel nearly threw him off first, as she was so surprised, and the king groaned. "Father, father!" Gretel cried, and he groaned again, his eyes opening slowly. "Hello," he said. Hansel and Gretel fell upon him. "Oh, father, you're all right, you're all right." Gretel said, "We wish we hadn't had to do that." And Hansel said, "But we had to." He took hold of them both. "I understand," he said. And then blinking at them as they just walked into the sunlight after a long time in the darkness, he said, "I understand, my children." Just then they heard footsteps in the hall, and it was the queen. Hansel looked at her father, covered in blood. "Father," he said, "did mother know that you were the dragon?" "No," the father replied. "I didn't know myself until just now. I just kept waking up in strange places. I really did think that I was shaving." "Oh, good. Get into the wardrobe," said Hansel. So the father got into the wardrobe, just as he did the mother into the room. "Did you have a nice time praying, mother?" Hansel said. She took her children in her arms. "Oh, I can barely pray. I think only of the dragon and of our poor kingdom." And Gretel said, "What if we told you, mother, that we knew who the dragon was, and the only way to stop the dragon would be to kill that person?" The Gretel looked back and forth between her two children. "You know who it is? Then you must do it right away." "No matter who it is," Hansel said. "No matter who." "It's father," the children said at once. The queen gasped. She fell to the floor and wept bitterly, and after a long time she said, "If you're sure it's him, if you can prove it, then yes, I couldn't do it, but I would understand." The children looked at each other and said at the same time, "Are we glad you said that?" Then they walked over to the wardrobe and let out their father, all covered in blood. The queen screamed. Then Hansel and Gretel explained it all, and the queen wept and beat the king's chest with her hands. But after that she laughed through her tears and threw her arms around all of them. Then she wept some more. "You're all okay?" she asked, as tears streamed down her face. "We're all okay," they said together. They all held one another, one big, happy, sad, complicated family, as tightly as they always should have. Okay. One more chapter to go.